when this stuff got started and they really boiled it up so that they were after us big time, I started asking myself, what's motivating these people? And you know what? I gave them the benefit of the doubt. I decided that they just didn't understand. I thought when they come to realize that bail is primarily about getting defendants back to court so their case can be disposed of, and when they learn that we do a lot better job of that than pretrial service agencies, then they're going to have a different view about what they ought to be doing and how they ought to be willing to have us be on the scene. And further, when they learn that a larger percentage of their people on release recidivate than do our people, they're going to recognize that community safety, public safety interests are better served through you than they are through them. And the more they learn about us and the more they look at the real numbers, the more they're going to realize that they need to come around and pat us on the back and give us their blessing, and they need to remove themselves from the scene. How stupid I was. And so then I decided, because the more I saw about what they were doing and the more I listened to them and the more I read what they were saying, the more I realized that they were not going to come to an epiphany and an understanding about how good we are and how poor they work. That wasn't going to happen. And so I decided, well, maybe it is about the jobs. Maybe they're seeking a more permanent career path for themselves. And if they can get rid of us, then they'll be the only game in town. There won't be anybody like us doing a better job than they do, so they won't have to compare their bad performance statistics to our good performance statistics. And we'll be gone and they will be solidly entrenched on a career path of permanence. I thought, well, that's what it's about. A little more time passed, and I read a little bit more and listened a little bit more and looked a little bit more. And you know what? I was wrong about that one too. That's not where they come from, folks. We are engaged, and this is what makes it so serious. We are engaged in a great ideological battle. Here's what I mean by that. Here is their core belief. The only reason that defendant got arrested in the first place is because society failed him. If we had been to that man or that woman in pretrial incarceration, if we had been to them all that we should have been, they never would have chosen a path of crime anyway. So they're in jail because it's our fault, not the defendant's fault. Now, we disagree. I want to read you something. I hate reading from the podium, but I want to read you something. Does anybody know who C.S. Lewis was? C.S. Lewis wrote the Chronicles of Narnia and the Screwtape Letters. He wrote over 100 books. He was probably the most famous professor Oxford ever had. But he was a very astute social scientist. He was a great observer of political systems. He talked about what happened in Europe and England with their bail system and what is now happening in America 50 years later. Let me read you what he said. Let me just read this to you. It's not long, but if you don't hear anything else I say today, please, and I'm going to try to cut mine short so you can get to lunch, but please hear this, because this adequately describes the difference philosophically between you and your opposition pretrial services. Once the purpose of punishment, he's talking about England and Europe, once the purpose of punishment became deterrence and rehabilitation, the experts became the arbiters of the system. Now, who are the experts? The directors of pretrial service agencies, Pretrial Justice Institute, NAPSA, and our ultra-liberal federal United States Justice Department. Once the purpose of punishment became deterrence and rehabilitation, the experts became the arbiters of the system. Formerly, when punishment was seen as something coming to the defendant because of his bad acts, the courts represented the common people's view of morality and justice. The majority's belief of right and wrong, listen to this, the majority's belief of right and wrong governed criminal sentencing. Now, the will of the common people has been exchanged for the will of the experts. Society must have order, and that order must protect what the society at large deems valuable. Punishment should be the reward earned for breaching the order and safety of that society. Obviously, mercy must be built into the system. And here I'm about to read the end, but the real point. The flaw of the current system is that it neither cures nor deters criminals, nor does it protect society. Now, they believe that the defendant is the victim. We believe the victim is the victim. They believe that you are a perfect target for their vitriol and their attacks. You know, when those radical Islamic jihadists flew those airplanes into the Twin Towers, they didn't just fly over the skyline of New York and say, let's just pick out the two biggest buildings we can find. No. There was a method to their madness. They wanted to obliterate the symbol of everything they believed was wrong in our infidel society. Keyword, symbol. Your opposition believes that it is morally reprehensible that a person should have to put up something of value to secure his reappearance in court. Since it's your fault, he's in jail anyway. And they think that's morally reprehensible for you to make that person secure his release. Now follow me here, folks. You, the retail bail lady and gentleman, are the vehicle by which that security is put in place. And consequently, you become, for them, the symbol of everything wrong in our justice system. And so you're fair game for them. And they're going to be attacking you more and more. Now, I'm not going to stand up here and tell you that I'm naive enough to believe that every bail bond writer is perfect. There's a rotten apple in every barrel, folks. I don't care if it's the legislator barrel, the judge barrel, the businessman barrel, the professional athlete barrel. I don't care what barrel it is. There's a rotten one in there somewhere. When I was a little boy, being raised on that little 2 bale a year sharecropper cotton farm way down in the piney woods of East Texas every Sunday morning, and I hated it. Every Sunday morning, my mother would take me by the hand, and we'd walk down that dirt country road to the little Antioch Baptist Church. And I didn't want to go, and she drugged me down there. And one day we got down there, and we're walking across the churchyard, and man, everybody was in a dither. I mean, it was just like a bunch of bees buzzing around that little church. I couldn't wait to find out what was wrong. So I nosed around among those people until I could hear what had happened. Guess what happened? the preacher had run off with the choir director's wife. Now let me tell you something. I've known a lot of Baptist preachers since then. That's the only one I ever heard of that did that. I could have decided right then and there, all Baptist preachers are bad men. I could take the bail bondsman that wrote the Clemens bond and I could say, all bail bondsmen are bad bail bondsmen. Bad people doing bad things. And that's what they do. They pick out the exception and paint you with a black brush. And they are engaged in a black propaganda campaign against you and your industry. And folks, I want to suggest something to you. You got to be real careful. What Al was saying up here a while ago and what these folks at this panel were saying about, in the end of the day, whether we win or lose is going to be up to you.